Differences and similarities. How can we make sense of such different moral traits as fairness, justice, spite, guilt, shame, empathy, helping, and sympathy? One way is to take a cross-cultural approach. Does moral behaviour develop in the same way for children around the world? How does it develop differently? Is there anything that unites children in what they think is immoral? This will help us work out which features of our moral behaviour are more sensitive to cultural input and flexible, and which are most heritable and stable. Richard Schweider, psychologist, anthropologist, was interested in these very questions. He interviewed over 600 Orions, residents of Orissa, a state on the east coast of India, and people from Chicago, USA, including 360 children ranging from 5 to 13 years of age. He presented them with 39 short stories in which someone does something that violates some kind of rule. Schweider et al., 1987. He found different about personality and individuality, figure 7.2. He found that both societies drew a line between what is acceptable and unacceptable, between what were moral issues and social conventions, but they sometimes differed. Issues that were more social conventions to Americans could be more matters of moral importance to Indians, and those that were mere conventions to Indians could be of moral significance to Americans. Social conventions are just the way we have agreed to do things, while knowing what we could do differently, whereas moral rules should apply equally to everyone. For example, while in sounds unremarkable to say, I eat with a knife and fork, but I don't mind if you do. It sounds odd to say, I don't like to murder people, but I don't mind if you do. Children appear to understand the difference. For example, in a separate study, American 7-year-olds judged issues such as choices about friends, appearance, clothing, hairstyle, and preferences for leisure activity as up to the child to decide. Lucy, 1981. By contrast, moral issues should be universal and unchangeable. Elliot Turiel, a student of Kohlberg, he of the Heinz dilemma presented earlier, argued that children recognize that rules about clothing, food, and many other aspects of social conventions, which by their nature are abruptly unchangeable. 1983. If you ask children about actions that hurt others, a girl who pushes a boy off a swing because she wants to use it, nearly all of the children say that such actions are wrong. Furthermore, for this situation, children say that the girl would be wrong even if the teacher said it was okay. And if it happened at another school where there were no rules against this kind of behavior, Damon, 1977, found that young children reject parental commands to engage in acts that violate moral rules, such as instructions to steal or cause harm to another person. And children of 6 years or older judged laws that discriminate against individuals on the basis of age, income, or appearance to be wrong, and that breaking them was acceptable. Helwig and Josbedzak, 2001. Terrell defined moral rules as relating to justice, rights, and welfare pertaining to how people ought to relate to each other. 1980. Ought to relate to each other. 1983. The argument that the relations and the moral rules are special, unaltered, and universal, not culture specific, is the foundation of all moral development. However, Schweider's work in Chicago and Arezzo showed that in reality, the boundary between moral rule, e.g., preventing harm, and social convention, e.g., what to wear, is much culturally there any way to predict what people considered were moral issues and which weren't. Schweider showed that how the different societies were organized and what they valued predicted some of the individual choices people made about morality. For example, collectivist societies place the need of groups and institutions first and subordinate the needs of individuals. This framework emphasized civic duties, social harmony, obedience to authority, and hierarchy. Figure 10. In contrast, this framework emphasizes individual choice and personal autonomy and rights. So, as culture differ in how they see individuals and groups, so does the concept of self. What is meant to be an individual is independent on the way the society is organized, and Schweider argued that this differences in how individuals thought about morality. Subsequent experimental work has provided evidence of Schweider's ideas. For example, Chinese 7 to 9 and 11-year-olds grew up in a collective benefits the individual. Canadian children who are from individualist cultures are more likely to approve of a lie that benefits the individual than a lie that benefits for the group. Tell 2007. All people lie and all cultures value honesty. But what these children were willing to lie about was predicted by how the cultures viewed the self in relation to others, Silver and Moore 2018. In a more recent study with 7 to 11-year-olds, Chinese and Canadian children, Tell 2016, the researchers found that groups were motivated to make positive impression their modesty, while Canadian children were more likely to actively disclose it, advertising, and pro-sociality. Children are born in a cultural fabric of norms and expectations, and as we have learned from chapter 3 and 5, they are armed with powerful motivations to imitate and learn from those around them. In Schweider's work, the children from Chicago, where society is more individualistic, their moral compass was being orientated towards the protection of individuals and their personal freedom. Even for 5-year-olds, Arabian children, the practices of food, clothing, and gender relations had become moralized in a way that they clearly had not been for the Chicago children. These cultural differences between independent views of the self not only colour what children think of as good, they can affect some very basic aspects of the way they feel. For example, one study asked age 9 and 10-year-olds to a set of items, such as a doghouse, a dog, and a child, into two groups. Those children from collectivist society were much more likely to use the relationships between items to form a group. Dogs sleep in houses, so doghouse, and a dog from a group. Whereas the children from the USA were more individualistic societies, were more likely to form groups around qualities of the items themselves. Dogs and children are both living things, so dogs and children from a group. 1992. Differences between societies, e.g., moral development. For example, when parents explain why children should behave in a particular way during social situations and how their behavior affects others' feelings, this is much more impact on promoting children and adolescents pro-social behavior and power assertive form of discipline, such as corporal punishment and yelling. Mounts and Allen, 2019. Furthermore, those children who experience more power assertive disciplines as children tend to show less empathy to others when they are adults, Lopez et al. 2001. And of course, moral norms changes issues that were once considered can take a moralized nature. Many behaviors have moved in the opposite direction, switching from moral wrongdoing to lifestyle choice, divorce, illegitimacy, marijuana use, masturbation, oral sex, and atheism. National level descriptions such as collectivist and individualistic light on a variation in what is considered to be moral. Moreover, he showed that it is impossible to predict some of the variations if we look at societal beliefs about individuals and their obligations to society. Key points. Children most sense incorporate the values of societies they are born into. The fact that the moral domain varies from culture to culture and from family to family does not mean we arbitrarily or make morality. Here at Joseph, 2004, suggests that some dimensions of morality that are candidates for being universal are also modified by culture. What they call moral foundations theory. The theory process of several psychological systems are the foundation of intuitive ethics. These moral foundations, it is argued, developed in humans because they helped us solve adaptive challenges in our evolutionary past. Each culture that constructs virtues, narratives, and institutions on top of these foundations, creating a variation we see in what is considered moral. The 5 foundations are care and harm. Foundation is related to our long evolution as mammals, with fairness and cheating. The foundation is related to the evolutionary process of reciprocal altruism. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It generates ideas of justice, rights, and autonomy. Loyalty and betrayal. This foundation is related to our long history as tribal creatures, able to form shift coalitions. It underlies the virtues of patriotism and coalitions. It underlies the virtues of patriotism and self-sacrifice. It is as if any people feel that it is one for all and all for one. Authority subversion. This leadership and followership, including differences to legitimate authority and respect for traditions. Sanctity and degradation. The foundation is related to the psychology of disgust and contamination. It underlies religious notions of striving to live in an elevated, less carnal, more noble way. It also underlies the widespread ideas that the body is a temple that can be desecrated by immoral activities and contaminates any idea not unique to religious traditions. The main message here is that there seems to be some inbuilt repertoire of moral and emotional sentiments that are shaped by particular social and cultural contexts a person finds themselves in. Box 7.1. Here it uses an analogy with taste receptors to illustrate this point. 2013. Humans are all born with the same 5 taste repertoire: sweet, sour, salt, bitter, and umami. The savory taste of foods, meat, and mushroom. Geography and history have made cultures have evolved incredibly different cuisines, yet they are all variations on the same theme of these 5 building blocks. Moral foundations theory is an attempt to identify the building blocks of morality. There is now good evidence not only that these moral foundations generalize across cultures, but they also have an important bearing on individuals, political ideology, and their on debates such as same-sex marriage, abortion, art, and welfare spending. Ray Patel, 2009. As he put it in the righteous mind, we're born to be righteous, but we have to learn what exactly people like us should be righteous about. To be righteous about. 2013 page P 11 key points: care, harm, fairness, cheating, loyal betrayal, authority subversion, sanctity and degradation are likely to become significant moral dimensions for children. Precisely what content becomes part of those dimensions can be GarDjinn